One of the biggest narratives in the NFL this year is just how bad the Broncos offense has been with Russell Wilson. Currently, as we head into week 7, they're dead last in the NFL in points per game and touchdowns scored per game. And with some of the networks this week saying Russ has been a bottom 2 or 3 quarterback this year, I wanted to dive into the tape and see if it's really been just that bad. But before we get started, I do want to ask you guys, please do hit that like button down below. Really helps me out. It's a free and easy way to support my channel. I also want to tell you real quick about my friends at SeatGeek. It is the #1 ticketing app out there, the best user interface. You can see exactly what your seats are going to look like. You're going to get the best prices there anyway. You get your tickets immediately. But now you will save $20 on top of that already good price tag by using promo code FranchiseGuy. So if you're heading to any football games, other sporting events, concerts, you name it, save 20 bucks, support my channel. It's a win-win. That's promo code FranchiseGuy on SeatGeek. So to be honest, I came into this expecting a Russell Wilson train wreck. And after diving into the film, I walked away a bit more optimistic than I expected, in that things can get better here in Denver. For one, it really isn't all bad from Russell Wilson. There's throws like this touchdown here to Courtland Sutton that show that he can still hang tall in the pocket, progress through his reads, and hit tight window throws even down into the red zone. He shows this again on this touchdown to Jerry Jeudy, where he's able to hold this single high safety against cover 3 with his eyes, just before splitting the seam for a touchdown with a nice throw with leverage away from that free safety into the hole in the zone. These are really high-level throws. And Russ is also known for his ability to consistently hit those beautiful moon balls that he just layers it over the top with unbelievable touch and accuracy over the head of defenders. And despite his lack of production this year, he still shows that he can still hit these moon balls that he showed on both of these throws from their Week 4 game against the Raiders, one to Jerry Jeudy and one to KJ Hamler. He can also still pick up a first down with his feet when he has to, showing that if he gets man coverage, he can recognize the space over the middle of the field, and still make you hurt with his legs, even if he doesn't have quite that same spring in his step that he might have used to have. In general, the talent with Russ is still very clearly there to me, and it's just a matter of him calming down, executing, and showing it more consistently than he's been able to do this season. And honestly, a big reason it's been hard for him to do that is there's just a lot of messy execution going on with this offense that's simply outside of his control. For example, the Broncos currently lead the entire NFL in penalties, and even more so, pre-snap penalties, where they also lead the NFL. This has really forced the offense to play behind script and behind the chains, really making things more difficult. Also, their run game has been mediocre this year. Though they're 19th in the NFL in yards per carry, they're only one of 3 teams in the entire NFL that don't have a run of 20-plus yards this season. They're also 31st in the league in first downs gained through the ground. So it's basically had to come through Russell Wilson in the passing game if they're going to pick up first downs. And they've also fumbled the ball 4 times, leading the league there as well, just to pile on. The Broncos' screen game is also borderline dysfunctional. Whether it's a slip screen to the running back or a receiver screen on the perimeter, Russ is just not getting a lot of help here from the system. When you combine the run game and the screens, it's just all very, very lackluster. And beyond this, the offensive line has had plenty of issues as well. While on an individual level, the Broncos haven't necessarily been losing a lot of one-on-one matchups outside of backup left tackle Week 5 against the Chargers, Nathaniel Hackett's line has been atrocious at recognizing and picking up basically any sort of blitz. Whether a team is running a game up front with a cross stunt, blitzing a cornerback, blitzing a linebacker, they seemingly fail to pick up anything other than a basic 4-man rush here, and teams seem to be catching on to that as well. In the last game against the Chargers, who are not a particularly blitz-heavy team, the Chargers blitzed on about a quarter of their snaps, and they ended up getting 2 sacks from linebacker Drew Tranquill, another from Derwin James, and simply on tape just detonated the entire Broncos offense in the second half. So Butch Barry, The Broncos offensive line coach has got to do a better job at getting these guys on the same page with their blitz pickup. And I do think it's right to question as well why Nathaniel Hackett decided to part ways with the legendary offensive line coach Mike Munchak, who did a great job with this O-line the last 3 years. So it's certainly not all on Russ, but even with all of those excuses, it's still not enough to explain how a team who acquired a quarterback who's supposed to be a game changer is dead last in the NFL in points per game and touchdowns per game. And unfortunately, Russ has put a lot of flaws on tape that are raising concerns not just for the future of this team's season, but the future at large for a team that has some newly acquired Super Bowl expectations based on the player that they acquired here in Russell Wilson. And the biggest thing that stood out to me about Russ from his tape is the lack of poise that he has shown in the pocket. Granted, it is difficult when his offensive line can't pick up a blitz, but there are plenty of plays where Russ has shown a concerning inability to stand in the pocket and let the play develop. He really is leaving a lot of meat on the bones of some good play calls from Nathaniel Hackett. This play against the Chargers is a perfect example. The Broncos are running mesh here, a staple of any NFL or college offense that every QB, all the way down to the high school level, probably has a solid understanding of how to run. Russ has a middle of the field read here. He's supposed to see if the underneath zone defenders go with those double crossing routes that are such a staple of this concept. And if they do, his job is to simply progress up to the next level where, barring some great read and reaction from the safeties, the middle of the field hitch should pop open in the middle against about any zone call that the Colts might have on. So here, the linebackers do collapse down, and that hitch comes open, just as the play is designed. The problem here is that the second Russ hits the top of his drop, he looks straight at the rush and just chooses to play backyard football instead of hanging in and going through the progressions of the play. This may be a 5-man rush from the Chargers, but there's no pressure in the pocket here, at least not until Russ creates it for himself. So instead of standing tall in the pocket and making a very basic read, Russ panics and spoils a perfectly good play from Hackett, the offensive line, and everyone else involved in the play. We can also visit the Colts game to see another example of this. Here, Denver is running a classic 3rd and long combination here with 3 verticals on the trip side designed as a clear out for a deep dig route on the backside. You might recall Nathaniel Hackett's Packers running this play design to Davante Adams several times in big moments for Green Bay. This is a great play against most zone coverages because any deep defender from the middle of the defense towards the field side, where the trips receivers are, will have to take those verticals deep. And this is going to leave that backside dig, the team's number 1 wide receiver, where it was Davante Adams in Green Bay, Cortland Sutton here in Denver. It leaves that player in an advantageous matchup with an open middle of the field with either a deep zone defensive back matching the route from outside leverage, or even better, as we'll see on this play, potentially a linebacker put in a near impossible assignment where he has to match both the depth of the route and the lateral movement of a number 1 wide receiver, 10 plus yards down the field. And on this play, the Broncos get an ideal zone call from the Colts with cover 2. This is the perfect call because that aforementioned linebacker, who just might be the only one that can make a play on that backside dig, is forced to turn to the other side and run up the seam with the number 3 threat on the field side, which vacates the middle of the field entirely. So Russ hits the top of his drop, is looking right at that deep dig as it is the first read on the play design here, but he doesn't throw it. And if he does, like I said, the middle of the field is wide open, and he has a pretty good chance of converting a 3rd and long here as long as Sutton can just get a couple yards after the catch in the open field. Now, the pressure is starting to turn the corner here, and Russ feels it. So you might say that he didn't have time to make that throw, but the reality is that a quarterback of this pay grade, $48 million a year, is supposed to recognize this first read as open, take a hitch up in the pocket, and perhaps deliver this ball even with a touch of anticipation, knowing that they might take a hit. But that said, even if your opinion is that this rush is too close for Russ to make this throw, well, he actually eludes the pressure and steps up and out of the pocket, as you might want to see if you're making that point. And with that, he's still more than capable of hitting that dig route that is even more wide open now than it was before, and he just doesn't throw it. He hits the check down instead, and they punt, which tells you he didn't have a great understanding of the play to begin with. And what's incredibly frustrating here is that Russ literally made this exact play just 4 days before against the Raiders. And on that play, he steps into pressure and delivers the same throw on the exact same concept. So I suppose it is good to know that he can make this play, but it's the consistency that Hackett is expecting Russ to be able to execute from the level of quarterback that they have here, especially on a concept that he's already seen Russ execute, again, just 4 days ago at this point in time. And there's dozens of other examples of just unfortunate poise in the pocket from Russ, whether it's him throwing the ball short of the sticks on third down, a little bit panicky, not really willing to stand in there, or bailing from clean pockets instead of letting plays develop. And then there's also just like 2 or 3 times this year where his spatial awareness inside the pocket has just been weird and bad. For a guy that's shown such good feel for that ability to manipulate the pocket in the past, just watch these 2 plays where Russ basically crow hops his way into the face of the pressure, into the back of the center, when he otherwise has plenty of room to operate, and watch as this impacts his mechanics and where the ball ends up on these throws. There's no way around it. Russ's pocket presence has been borderline terrible this season, and it's really hurting his ability to look like that $50 million quarterback that the Broncos thought they were trading for. Another area of Russ's game that's held him back this year is accuracy, and it isn't really worth diving too far into because it's pretty straightforward, but simply put, Russ is known for being one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. His team paid a premium to get him in the building, and his accuracy, particularly his accuracy towards the sidelines and over the middle of the field, has been hit or miss this year. And no missed throw was more costly than his second half interception against the Colts, where you can see this receiver gets a step on Stephon Gilmore here as he's running a post route into the red zone. But Russ leaves this ball behind the target. You can see the receiver has to stop his feet and work back to the ball as Gilmore is able to cover that ground and makes a good play on this ball. Accuracy has been a big strength for Russell Wilson throughout his career, and it's a big reason why the Broncos traded for him. And yes, he has still dropped some dimes this year, and it's good to know that he can still make those throws. But simply put, missing throws has been another reason why he's been disappointing this year for Denver. The last thing with Russ that stands out is he's just made some head-scratching, uncharacteristic mistakes, particularly in that Thursday night game against the Colts. Look at this 2nd and 7 where Hackett draws up a perfectly called, perfectly timed shot play with a double post concept on the field side of the play. Now, based on the rules of many Shanahan-style play-action shots, which this offense stems from that coaching tree, and the way that Jeudy runs this route along with where Russ ends up throwing this ball, I can pretty safely assume that the inside post here actually has what you call a 2-way go, where Jeudy can adjust his route based on the coverage. So if Jeudy gets some form of 2 high, being cover 2, cover 4, quarter, half, aka cover 6, he'll run this post up the field to try and split those safeties. And if he does get single high, he'll round his post into more of a deep over route that will put the safety in a bind as the boundary side corner here is occupied with that hitch route underneath. The Colts end up in cover 3, which is exactly what Hackett likely anticipated, especially against Gus Bradley's cover 3 heavy defense. And this is a perfect cover 3 beater. And Jeudy does the right thing here by rounding his route, creating a good 10 yards of separation. Russ, on the other hand, from a perfectly clean pocket, mind you, reads this incorrectly as if the coverage is too high, thinking that Jeudy is going to continue his path on that post route. And he throws this ball straight up the field, directly at the safety, instead of leading Jeudy on his path where he would have been a missed tackle away from turning a surefire 35-yard completion into a game-changing touchdown. But because of the read, Jeudy has to change course and turn into a defensive back just so this ball doesn't get intercepted. And God forbid I'm wrong and this actually isn't a two-way go. This is just a deep over in which I can't possibly explain where Russ thinks he's going with this football. But I'm pretty sure this is a two-way go. Then in the same game, Russ makes a total boneheaded interception with his team in position to all but seal the game with a field goal that would have made it a 12-6 game on a night where the Colts were not scoring a touchdown. And he just blindly heaves this ball up into double coverage. And I honestly don't know what he's thinking here. I think what he sees is that this second read, the backside dig, is coming open, and he's trying to make a hero throw under pressure here. But the hit clearly impacts his ability to make this throw. And Russ simply has to be better playing situational football in this moment. But poor decision aside, I still can't explain how this throw ended up so far off the mark if he is trying to hit this dig route, because I don't think the hit is that bad. This play just sucks all around. And then we can go to that infamous fourth down play from the same game. It's overtime. Denver decides to go for the win and not the tie by kicking a field goal. Totally fine with the decision there. But Russ uncharacteristically just stares down Courtland Sutton the entire play and then forces it to him. He fails to scan the field in any way, shape, or form and misses KJ Hamler coming wide open for what would have been a walk-off touchdown. And it's not like Russ has put on tape this season that he's staring down receivers or isn't able to progress through his reads. No, far from it. But with the game on the line, he just uncharacteristically freezes mentally, and it cost his team the game. Russ is not some one-read quarterback. He's a guy who has consistently been on the same page with his best receivers down the field throughout his career. And he's generally played some of his best football when the lights are brightest and the moments are full of pressure. So to see Russ perform like this, it's just odd. Now, that said, Russ has had stinker games before. And after reviewing the tape, that Colts game certainly stands out as different than the rest of his games this year, where he's played better, at least. So it's more than possible that this was just one of those days on a short week for Russ, but he also hasn't quite been the same old Russ in those other games either. So it's difficult to know what to do with Russ right now and moving forward. If you want my honest opinion, Russ has played more like the 20th best quarterback or so than that top 5 to 10 guy that they thought they were getting. His mistakes have cost the Broncos games, and it may have dug them into a hole that's too big for them to go and make the playoffs this year. But what I can also say with confidence is that the talent is still there with Russ, and that a lot of these mistakes are very correctable things, whether that's blitz pickups, penalties, miscommunications with his receivers, and just avoiding mistakes all around. So I really do think that the Broncos can clean up a lot of this stuff and maybe get back to being a middle-of-the-road offense, which with this defense, depending how quickly they're able to turn things around offensively, might make for an interesting playoff push. But if nothing else, I do think things can get better, and I think Broncos fans would happily take at least some form of positivity and momentum into the 2023 season at this point, because things have just been an unmitigated disaster in Denver so far this year. And that's all we've got. So this video is almost certainly going to get demonetized by the NFL. So if nothing else, please do hit that like button and subscribe down below. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more of my content moving forward. But if you want to show some more support than that, I do encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive content, things like film breakdowns and my weekly NFL picks. You can also become a member here on YouTube now. That is turned on now. You get some live stream benefits and comment perks. You can also check out my brand new store, thatfranchisestore.com, where you can get some sweet merch. You can rep the brand and support my brand. I really appreciate you guys showing your support. Appreciate you just watching this video, and anything beyond that is amazing. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. Enjoy this weekend of football, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.